All right, welcome everyone to part three of Reading with IO, episode 67. And, welcome Josh and David Boroughs. You know, David, as I was saying, this book, I don't know, like, this book really impacted me. There's one part in the book, right? Is when Tulip Lawrence is the author, right?
Mhm.
And she noticed that she noticed that our assistant was rude and to Sam, and she wanted to check in on her and have a conversation with Sam. So she actually took the time to go to Sam's house to go check on Sam, and set a setting. Sam and her family were having s'mores in the backyard, making s'mores, and the author came in and they sat by the fire, Sam and
Mhm.
Tulip, and they started. People can see I love this book because we are
Yeah.
talking about it. Like, I remember everything in this book, right? I remember this book so much. They were having s'mores and they were making s'mores, and the thing that touched me is Sam touched me, but also is Tulip wanted to change Sam, right? Saying sometimes, you don't have to be, you can take help from extroverts and let them help you and things like that, so that because Trent has been writing all our speeches
Mhm.
and things like that because he was extroverted. He could tell the story. But I love the way Sam pushed back and said, hey, this is my story. This is my authentic self. And Tulip is actually been an author that writes about authenticity. And
Mhm.
Sam actually went in and said, hey, this is who I am. And you've been writing about this in your books and you're not living it. And he pushed back on Tulip,
Yeah.
and Tulip recognized it and said, like, that's true. And when it came to the day when Sam gave the speech, I think I read the speech and I was proud. Like, if I felt like Sam was my daughter or something, I was really proud. Like, I think I'm attached to Sam a little bit. I felt like, man, that was a great speech. And, and she was so authentic to herself that even Tulip's speech changed, to her being authentic self. Talk about it. Why was that important to you guys to just write about authenticity in that way?
Yeah.
And.
Well, so the book Tulip is this world famous author. We're talking Brene Brown famous, right? She's like really famous, and everybody's read her books, and she writes fiction. So it's this idea that we're writing fiction, but this fiction that we're writing has actually got some really good stuff in it, right? So Tulip's books are like that. They're fiction, but they have some kind of lessons in there that help kids be authentic and believe in themselves. And Tulip's an introvert. Many people realize that, but she is. But they don't think she is because she's this famous person.
Mhm.
But she has Trent in the background, who's this more outgoing, forceful character that's really driving a lot of her business, and she comes to rely on him. And they do these talks all the time and all over, and Trent's just used to running the show, and Sam's been working on this thing for a month and a half, 2 months, trying to pull this whole thing together at Jane Piety or Anxiety High, and Trent inserts himself in the middle of it and causes a lot of stress and anxiety for Sam because he questions what she's doing. And he's like, well, at some point in time, he's like, let me see what you're doing. I want to check it. And he checks it and he says, I don't think this is right. Here, I'm going to do it for you. And that just causes even more stress for her. And and Tulip knows this is going on, but Tulip, has relied on him so much that even though her books talk about authenticity and everything, she's relied on Trent so much, and it's worked out so well that she just kind of falls into this world of, he's not a bad guy, he's just trying to help, and so she kind of approaches. Well, at first she's worried about Sam because she knows Sam's under a lot of pressure, so that's why she goes to her house. But she's kind of like, give Trent a shot. And Sam in her mind, she's thinking, how can I tell Tulip, this world famous author, this famous person, and I'm just this high school student, that she's wrong, and that Trent is not the savior or not the savior of my issues or the solver of my problems. He's the cause of my problems. So she's internally struggling with how do I tell Tulip this reality, and she develops, she comes up with the courage and does that. But partly because Tulip insists that she does it. Like, 'cause Tulip wants to hear it. She wants to know it. And as soon as she like tells Tulip this fact, this is what's happening in my mind. This is how I perceive it. Tulip recognizes kind of the trap she's fallen into, and immediately says, "You know what? When Mrs. Sweeney picked you to run this, she was absolutely picked the right person. You do what you want to do it your way." And they move on from there. But it is a pivotal point where Sam's struggling, and Tulip could have went either way. She could have just pushed her to do something she didn't want to do, and things might not have worked out as well as they did. So,
hey, Josh, there's a little kid in high school out there that is junior high that wants to be their authentic self. What would be your advice to them?
I think that, like, if you're worried about people judging you for being your authentic self, people in general are kind of mean. So they're going to talk about you and probably make fun of you no matter what you do. So I feel like you might as well do the things that make you happy. So at least that way you'll have that. And then you'll know that what you're doing is right and what you actually want to do. So you are able to stand up for yourself like Sam was able to. Because you ultimately know that what you're doing is the right thing to do and it's what you want to do. So I think in your mind you will be less prone to worry about what other people think because you're doing what matters to you.
Yeah. And it's hard to do that because you have so many people wanting you to do something different, right? So I know over my lifetime I was told much more to be something else than I was told to be myself. Whether it was in school or whether it was at work or what it was, especially at work, I was told so many times that I had to act differently, and I struggled, and I just didn't feel like it was me. And at times I would be successful, but there were other times. But the whole time I was drained, I was exhausted, and it wasn't until I really embraced this idea that I can do those good things, but I just need to do them my way. Regardless of what people are telling me, that's just what I need to do to be healthy and happy. And that's kind of the message we want to get to kids. Instead of waiting until you're 20, 30 years into your career and figuring this out on your own, these books are really have those core principles in them so kids can read them and kind of learn from these fictional role models and say, hey, maybe I am good enough the way I am. Maybe all I need to do is be me. And it's not always going to be easy because our characters in the book, their life isn't always easy, but they get help from their friends, they get help from their counselors, their teachers, and they work through it and they grow. It's about growth at the end of the day. So they're authentic and they grow and they become, better for it, I think.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, what's your best part about writing this book and seeing it all come together and people, and that's turning into a book that's republished and out there? What's the best part of the whole journey for you?
I think not this book specifically, but the series as a whole. It helped me realize that I actually was an introvert and the strengths that come along with it. Because before, I have this really specific memory of me and my dad in the car on the way from home arguing because I kept on saying that I wasn't an introvert and he was insisting, yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I was like, no, I like hanging out with my friends, so I can't be an introvert. And he was like, he walked me through all of the misconceptions about being introverted and the fact that it's not actually a bad thing. So I think realizing that and then using my realizations to help me write the book, because I know what it's like to learn all of the stereotypes and how they aren't true. So I feel like it was helpful for me to write the book in a way that would teach other people the same lessons I learned.
So as a parent, that's a wonderful thing, right? Because you want, as an introverted parent, sometimes you find yourself pushing your kid because you don't want your kid to go through what you went through, right? So I find myself sometimes pushing Josh to do the presentation, do the preparation, and I end up being doing the opposite of what I needed to do, because what I really need to do is really encourage him to be authentic and give him the tool sets to be authentic and let him do it his way. So those books help me too, because it's really about, writing these books in a way that helps. One of my goals was he could learn more about himself. And writing in a way that he learned more about himself, and then at the same time, I learned a lot too. What I would also say is that, I could have wrote these books without Josh's help, and they wouldn't have been near as good as they are, because the books contain stories from my life, they contain stories from Joshua's life, and they're not. We fictionalized all that, but the foundation for a lot of what's in this book comes from our experiences. And my stuff would have been my history and my experiences would have been dated, but Josh came in and made the book, 2025, type of a book that kids today could be interested in, and he brought like his real life lessons today, the things that concerned him. And I pulled in from examples from my past when I was in high school, things that really impacted me. And those stories kind of, found their way to the pages. And that's kind of what's in this book.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you enjoyed reading that. I think that's cool, because I think we did write them for teens. And I think teens get a lot out of reading these books. But the thing that is cool about them is that teachers and that parents, of introverted teens, introverted students, will get a lot from reading these books as well. So they're easy to read. They're fun to read. Hopefully they're interesting stories that kind of capture people's attention. And, our goal is really to get them in front of as many people who can use some help or use them and learn from them as possible. And so the more people we talk about it, the more people who read them, the more people who share what's in them, I think the better chance we'll have of getting these messages out there. And it's like I said, it's not just another dry book about being an introvert. It's a story. They're engaging characters. Hopefully you read them and you get halfway through and can't put it down, and you got to make it through through the end. And you can do that in a couple hours. They don't take that long to read. So
no, seriously, I actually read it 2 times in 3 days. I've read it before too, right? I've read it before it came out. I read it when it came out, and I've read it 2 times in the last 3 days, knowing I was going to do this. The first time I read it, I was like, I need to read this again. I've enjoyed it, and seriously, I've enjoyed every one of them, be it like Volume 1, The Way Nows, and I just love that you guys, evolved, right? Nows was around, getting out of his shell, his parents, his families, dealing with school. Ruby was more around creating a club. Sam is around, hosting an event. You guys have just evolved it and put it into practical what people and kids and parents go through. And I love the fact that you actually brought Sam's parents in as well, just to show the impact of parents, because some parents wanted her to get all A's and all, and not, be involved in any school stuff. And that's
they're a source. They're definitely a source of pressure, at least in Sam's mind, right? She learns they're more supportive than she thought they were, but it's definitely a source of pressure for her early in the book, for sure.
I recommend this book to every parent, every kid. And actually, I think if you go through this book as well, you can, even in high school, there's a part of corporate America in there too, right? You can see
a lot of the lessons.
Thank you for taking the time to write these beautiful books, because I know it's a lot of time and it's a lot of money too that you guys have spent. And I think every parent out there, please try and get it. Anxiety, give it a chance. And you will see, even if you're a parent of an extrovert or an introvert, there's still things there that you will learn that would help you, coming from a different perspective. So I will encourage everybody to get a copy of the book.
Well, thank you for being such a positive supporter of our efforts and our work, and just being positive forces in the world generally. If you're one of those bright lights that shine brighter than anybody else out there. So keep doing what you're doing, IO. Keep reaching out, keep pushing, keep engaging people, keep just smile, keep that smile on reading with IO, because it's every time I see your face, it makes me happy. So
thank you, man. Thank you very much. And all right, thank you guys. And stay tuned for another episode of Reading with IO.